And thank you so much for your questions before the session. It helps us to prepare. And then we have a really exciting guest joining us today, one of our partners, Jacob from Acorn, and he will be sharing some details about the project, the first project that is being built on top of Tagion. So we're really excited for that, and he'll be joined by Christian V, who will answer any technical questions regarding that. I'll just give a few more moments. Hopefully the technical issue will be resolved. Meanwhile, please do draw that you're here. It'd be nice. Great. Great news, Thijs. Then whenever you're ready, please join me on stage. Hello, thank you. Hey, Silverblade. Hey, Benjamin. Nice to see you here too. Awesome. Great, guys. Hey, Thijs. Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Hey everyone, and hi Irina. Glad to be here again. And I see we actually have quite some people in the audience today.
Yeah, right. It's an amazing turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should just dive right in. Let's dive right in. Can everyone see my screen also that I'm sharing?
I see your screen. It's fine. Okay. Should I just present it?
Yeah, please take us through the roadmap.
Yeah. I'll try to do it rather short, but if you look at the top, this was basically the roadmap from this year. We caught up some of the first quarters cut off in the timeline at the top. But we more or less completed all of the set goals we had for this year, which we're actually very proud of. And that also means the last big milestone for this year is we are going into mainnet. Basically, the system is going live. That means we basically have a system running on 5 nodes, still centrally governed, but it will be operating in a production system, so it will be live. And the good news is that we are very, very confident that we are going to reach this milestone. We don't have learned anything that should not making us not able to actually complete that milestone. Right now, what we are doing extensively is testing environments and also doing acceptance testing and operational testing. Like we are ensuring that you cannot illegally mint tokens in a transactions. You cannot do double spends. That would be pretty bad. We are also ensuring that if the system should crash at some point, we have working backups, and we can actually restore the database and restart the system at the correct state, like with the correct data. That's some of the main criteria for going live. So we have a good feeling in our stomach when that happens, and that we are on track with. And you can also see the done color, the you can see the legend down at the bottom here. So we completed much of the task I wanted to do for this year. And at least right now we are doing testing, and we are finishing the last part of the protocol and setting up the testing and production systems. And that's going according to plan. That's very, very positive. We are also starting to look into, if you go into the operations lane, or lane here, we are also starting to wonder about how to do key management. We need to set that process up. We need to collect the public keys from the people who invested, so they can actually get their tokens paid out into their wallets. We need to have the wallets ready. They are also being ready now and security being audited as well. So they are secure. And that all that is also going to plan. And all of you will also hear more about this from our support team quite soon on We Need Your Keys. And then on the top, we have something called onboarding real-world utility cases and builders, because it's very, very important for us. One thing is we build this tech platform now, but now we need somebody to use it, right? So it can actually have value, so we can get users on board. And we have more use cases going on, and some of the most mature one we'll also present here today. We started with this endeavor here in late spring, where we've started collaborations, and that's also going very well. And that's also, of course, something we are going to focus heavily on the next year, because we are becoming more mature and we're onboarding more cases and partners to help us with this. But this is also going according to plan. And they, of course, also need a live system, apparently, to deploy their product on. So that's also why it's very, very good we go live this year as promised. That's a little bit about the roadmap. We are on track, and we basically delivered on everything we promised to do. Yeah, I don't know if there is any question to this or things I should go into.
Actually, I think this is a pretty good segue actually to dive straight into the questions, because I think you just answered the first question. Will the mainnet be going live by the end of this year? And we'll go through the questions that were posed by Javansu and Matsfugu, and then please give us your questions, and this is your chance to ask us anything. Yeah, so I guess you did answer that. Will the mainnet be going live by the end of the year?
Yes, we're very confident it will go live this year. So yes.
Great.
Of course, something can happen, but we haven't found any dangerous or like very serious bugs yet that should tell us otherwise. Of course, if we find anything, we will tell. But currently, it's looking very well, and we have done main parts of the testing as well.
Yes, and big up for the whole developer team. I know they've been working extremely hard over the last months. So yeah, big up, round of applause, hats off, doing an amazing job. Next question. Once the mainnet is live, will there be some guides created on how to become a node operator?
Yeah, so let me elaborate a bit on that question. Next year, when we have a mainnet, we are going to work on different tracks. As I said, we're going live on a central setup to start with. The next thing we're starting to work on as one of our main priorities, probably the main priority for the next half year, is distributing the system. So the first thing we are going to do is making sure we can distribute it across more nodes and also external nodes. And that means also attack vectors. And that's what we're going to look into. I don't know when it will happen, but as soon as we're ready, that's of course our goal to make this happen. And that will be in the next work stream for after mainnet. So that's the short answer. We will not have it directly. The documentation for this will obviously not be ready after mainnet is live because we are still operating it centrally. But as soon as we are ready for it, then we will ask for whoever wants to operate a node to sign up, and then of course we'll make documentation ready as well. But that will probably be like, I don't know when. I don't want to promise anything, but during next year, probably in the first half year. Let's see.
Just out of curiosity, is there anyone in the audience here that is thinking of becoming a node operator and joining the project in that way? If there is, drop your message in the chat. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, we would love to have many node operators, basically, right? So yeah.
Fantastic. There's so many. That's good, and that's really encourages. That's really encouraging because that's what we want to do, right? We want to reduce barriers to entry for people to actually become node operators, compared to other systems, for example, where you need huge mining power or an immensely high stake already of the currency to become a node operator. Here, it's a little bit different. I guess we'll go into the detail at another point. Just wanted to highlight that point about reducing barriers to entry for node operators in the system.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really great to see so many people here that want to do it. Nice. Okay, next question. What is the incentive for investors to put money into the project? Is it about the price of PGN increasing after launch? That's a good question.
It depends on each investor, right? They can have short or long-term horizon. It could also be because they want to stay here and build on top. It depends on the investor. But in general, when you invest in something which you expect somehow increase in value over time, and at some point you sell it, right? So I guess the answer would be yes, if you're that type of investor, right? It depends on who you are and what is your objective by investing into Tagion, and what is your time horizon. I can tell you many investors have many different strategies and time horizons. Yeah. Does the answer make sense? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if it doesn't, please challenge us. Um, Next question. Matt
Yeah.
Fugel would like to know
Yeah.
more about why the project is valued as it is and how the internal pricing is expected to develop up until Tagions are on the open market. This is important, up until Tagions are on the open market. Also, which other project this internal valuation is compared to for it to be valued at this?
Okay. How? Okay. So first of all, like we can talk about before mainnet and after mainnet, right? Before mainnet, of course, we are in control because we're building the system. And before mainnet, we have done a risk-based approach and also maturity-based approach. So we said, okay, do we have any prototypes to start with? We didn't. We had a good idea and a kind of white paper, right? And then we start building from this. And then at some point, we had a first prototype of some small component. That basically brings down the risk. And then you get more and more proofs that the technology can actually work in practice. And that takes down the risk and also uncertainty from a product point of view. And of course, until you reach mainnet, of course, then your general risk is going much lower because you're actually proving the product from a risk and uncertainty point of view. That's one of the measurements we have done. Then we also done it from a financial risk point of view. How well have we funded the project? And also being able to staff the project, that also brings down the risk. And then of course also from a general like market maturity point of view, are we starting to get like traction from like adoption from community or for projects building on top? That's of course also something that's going to affect the price. Not so much before mainnet because it's a bit difficult to build before you have a mainnet. But of course, we have some small traction now, so that's actually extremely positive. And that's how we actually slowly made price increases over the last 3 years, I think, each time we reached a milestone, financial or technical. So that's after mainnet, I would say, what could the expectations be? Like the risk and uncertainty will go down also from our point of view. That will be a certain thing, right? If it's operating as it should, which we are thinking it will. So that will be after mainnet. And then all the investors will have vested tokens, basically, right? So they'll get tokens out of their wallet. They can, of course, start to trade with each other or sell them off in some peer-to-peer fashion. Like that's one thing. Of course, we can still sell tokens from our wallet centrally. So we have a big part of the tokens, of course, as well. But actually, also many investors have tokens. So it's not going to be only us who set the price here. But I mean, it will be very weird if the price go down after mainnet when we actually prove the system. So that's my only comment I will make for this kind of predictions. But because and we will be looking more into commercial traction after mainnet go live, because that's what matters. It's the user adoption, it's transaction volumes, like the projects building on top. Which other projects this internal valuation can, okay. So if you look into other projects, also when they went live, what were their valuation should be like? It could be Hedera, it could be like Aptos, Sui. In general, they are very much higher than we are, like times 20 times something like this. We actually have a very good feeling about this. Like, we think it's very good to start at a low point, basically, and slowly build from there. We think it's good for everyone, basically. So I think that's how we also price it from the beginning. We want to reward everyone taking the risk and actually help us support the project from the outset. That's how we did the valuation compared to other projects. We set a very low bar, so to speak. Very conservative. Yeah. I don't have any comparisons right here, but I think we have some comparisons you can look into if you look into other both listings and also what they have sold for and valuations when they raised money. Yeah, I think, for example, Aptos in their seed rounds, they were valued, like, I cannot exactly remember, I think they raised around $200 million, and I think they're valued at around 1.2 billion. So from that point of view, I think we are very low end of the market. So we're very conservative price.
Then there's a follow-up question, touching upon the commercial plan in general and what the team's plan is to get more partners on board. Before we get to that, though, I know that Yen Lun is in the audience here, and he asked a question earlier in the general chat about Tagion and its price and how what mechanisms we are thinking about to have an impact on price. I guess this is a good follow-on question, and it'll be great to explore this. Exploring this in the context of a time frame is important, though, because on one hand, this project has a really, really long vision, a long time frame for its development, and a very ambitious plan of creating a new financial infrastructure. We can look at a time frame over 10, 15 years. However, we also need to consider the short and medium term time frame where the mechanisms are a bit different. Let's discuss this a little bit, and for that, I would like to also invite Jonas on stage. And Jens, if you also like to jump on, you're very welcome to join the discussion. Nice. Hey, Jonas.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Jonas. I can also hear you.
Nice.
You're very loud. That's good.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for joining. I think just given the context and what stage of the project we are today, where we are gearing up for mainnet, we are figuring out how to join, how to go live and hit the market. This is one side. The other side is our long-term vision, which a lot of people in the audience have believe in and have joined the project many years ago. Some of you because of the grander vision of creating an alternative financial stable system. So yes, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this and how you see this project evolving and impacting the different mechanisms.
Yeah, may I just say something before we start the discussion? And so one thing, it's like this project, when we started it, we have a very long time frame. Like we said, 15 years. First 5 years, R&D can get a mainnet running. That's very good. It's like pure tech. Next 5 years, get some adoption and volume, and then after we have some volume, we have the basis starting to explore our monetary system. So we are still pretty far away from that point in time, basically. But also how we work in the Tagion setup in the community, how we discuss and how we actually move forward here. We have visions and values, right? And we don't always have the solutions right away. That's why we discuss with each other in this community. And of course, at some points we set with a solution, we implement it, and when we finalize it. But before that happens, we don't have a final solution. We have very many good ideas and models written down, which we also have, which we can discuss now. But it's also so all of you can understand. It's what we are discussing here is not like necessarily the final version of anything. The final version would be what we implement and also what the community agrees on, and that's basically in discussions right now. Even though we have some good ideas on how we would like to do it. So that's just my intro to this. This is actually how we built this project from the outset, and how we moved it forward. Yeah. So not to confuse people, but Jonas, will you start with like?
Sure. So I don't know where exactly to start, but I think so at least the way I see it is that, so yeah, the long-term vision is still the same. At the end of the day, you want to the current monetary system. But before that even becomes relevant, or before it even becomes possible, you would need to bootstrap the demand of the native token TDN. So that's like again, the way I see it, it's like the short to medium term vision to simply first and foremost create an ecosystem, a platform where people can build new innovative applications with real world utility, which of course would drive the demand of TDN. So that might take 10 years, that might take 15, 20 years. I don't know how long, but once we have accomplished to do that, create sufficient demand for the native token, we can start exploring, experimenting with possible monetary policies. And I think the treasury design, with the treasury sitting in like at the nexus of the network, I think that would be an important component.
That's described in the tokenomics paper. If people don't know what you're talking about, right, Jonas?
Yeah. So yeah, the treasury is like, if you haven't read it, it's like a community governed DAO, you could say, like a decentralized autonomous organization or whatever you want to call it, but which essentially is able to, through voting, conduct monetary policies, distribute TDN tokens or burn TDN tokens or whatever is needed. So I think that's gonna be a crucial element in creating a monetary system, at least a community governed monetary system, whether it's gonna be able to achieve price stability. I myself is a bit skeptical of that, because I think like price stability is a logical impossibility, I would say. But that's like a big topic. I was actually in the process of writing an answer to Jens. But yeah, so I think, but still, you could still make, through a community governed, the community governed treasury, you could still conduct fair and fair monetary policies, which of course would align with the interest of the community itself.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I very much agree with you, Jonas. And also, like, you can never create something that's perfectly stable. Because in a real economy, if you're talking about an independent currency, like not pegged to a USD or euro for that matter, which is also independent, so that will always be dependent on the underlying economy, right? And the economy is never stable in itself, but you can try to make it as stable as possible. And that will be the aim, and it will never be perfect. I think but we can probably do it much better, and also create a fairer distribution of money, basically the flow of money. And if you look at some of the old writings, like denationalization of money, and how Hayek described, like, how could you bootstrap a new financial system? He said, if you are allowed to do this in the 70s, right? Then he would start like with the big utilities or like groups, or in the supply chains, in the start of the supply chain, where you have the big volumes of goods, basically, because that's where prices get sticky. So we can get into the supply chain with your tokens, and also with your system. Then you have a chance. That also means the volume, in other words. Then you have a chance of building something which gets sticky prices, because that is where you form the prices in an economy. It's actually in the start of the supply chain, right, with the resources and so forth. And so that could be like a way to do the adoption strategy. But on the other hand, it's never really been done before. So it's something we need to experiment with and learn as we go. Like, because we're not going to do some kind of synthetic stablecoin or whatever with state ethers or something like this, because we don't really think that solves any questions whatsoever, so to speak.
And also just to add to that, I think there's like a lot of different components that need to be explored before we can even reach that stage. So first and foremost, you would need to like decide on a basket of goods according to which you pick your currency, and that in itself is like a political biased decision, because it would favor some, disfavor others. So you need to do a lot of research, a lot of experimentation in regards to that. And then like a next step, you would need to figure out how to adequately monitor the system, like get data inputs on pricing and stuff like that, to sort of, how to say it, govern or govern the monetary policies. And then of course we need to set up the council, like the governance mechanisms, and possibly you would also need to introduce some form of liability side bookkeeping, I would say, to create credit, all these different things. And again, that's the way I see it, but I see there are so many different components to it that we need to thoroughly look into, explore, and yeah, learn from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to stress that right now our focus is on building real cases with real, and that is like a good segue for next part of the town hall, because we're actually doing it together with our partners, and we're really excited for that. Does anyone have any questions to this discussion? You can always continue the discussion in the general, and please join in whenever you feel like. Thank you so much for clarifying and answering the questions. Thank you guys for posting these questions. They're really important for us, and we're always happy to answer whatever comes up. Thanks, Thijs. Thanks, Jonas.
Thank you all for being here. Talk to you. Bye.
Yeah.
So with that, I'd like to invite Jacob and Christian to the stage.
Thank you. See if
Hey,
I can
Christian.
turn on my video here. Wrong one. 1 second.
Hello.
Yeah, that looks more like me.
How are you?
Very good here. Thank you.
Great.
See if we can get Jacob in as well. And while we wait for him, it's quite exciting what we're about to look into. What Jacob is building with Acorn on top of the Tagion system, and it's not directly on the top of the Tagion system. There's a platform in between called Aeon Connect, and Aeon Connect that's really a platform for businesses where they can thrive with their own digital asset businesses, whatever they would like to sell to the customers, whatever value they would like to provide. And Acorn is the first example that's being implemented right now on the system, and that is what Jacob is going to tell us about today. I think you're here now, Jacob.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. And maybe if you just give a small intro also to who you are, that would be great. And,
sure.
Yeah, take it away. I will also stop sharing my screen so you can share yours. Please feel free to do that.
Wonderful. Just give me 1 sec and I will share mine. So, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful.
It's loading here.
So,
yeah, here we go.
Thank you, first of all, for having me. My name is Jacob Nathan. I'm the CEO of Acorn Denmark, and I've been with the company since February this year. And as you can see here, we're focusing on offering what we call technology-driven forestation. And I will just explain, obviously, in more detail what that entails in just a few moments. But first, let me just emphasize that I'm not here to moralize or convince anyone that there is a climate change happening. That's, I guess, is for another session. My ambition is rather to explain the solution that we have developed at Acorn that essentially enables companies to invest in credible nature restoration projects, also what we call greenhouse gas mitigation projects. Obviously, we will touch a bit more on the, you could say, the credibility element, because this is where we depend on the technology from Descartes. Obviously, we have this full traceability and transparency on what happens in a project, essentially. So let me just go one step back, and it's just a small observation here. Might be an odd image, and it's not me. But just a few years back, I had the pleasure of living in Florida in the US, and you could say the discussions around climate over there is a bit different than it is in Europe. There's disagreement on parts of is there climate change happening? But I think the interesting observation was that I was there in around 2016 to 19. And then this summer, actually, in Manatee Bay in Florida, the temperature of the water had increased to more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is actually the first time ever in history that this happened. And this was just, you could say, suddenly the situation also that in the US, talking about climate changed. So there was suddenly, I wouldn't say consensus, there's a climate change happening, but suddenly it was right into your face that we actually need to do something, and we need solutions for this. And this is where obviously Acorn comes into place. Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Yes. So let me just give you a very quick introduction to what Acorn is offering. So essentially what we're allowing companies to is they can invest in what we call nature restoration projects. So it means we have the companies on the one side that provide capital to landowners, for instance. It could be farmers that then agree to convert their agricultural land into forest. And this forest will be what we call, it will be registered as a peace forest. It means that by legislation or by law, this has to stay there forever. The landowner then hands over some of the rights to what we call ecosystem services. So that might be the carbon that this land actually, that the CO2 uptake from this land. And the companies can then use this on their sustainability reporting. So let's say a company like one of our clients called GreenMind in Denmark, they had invested and supported one of our pilot projects. They have invested in 30 shares of the pilot project that essentially allows them to take all of the carbon which is being extracted from that piece of land, and they can use it in their sustainability reporting. And we then, as Acorn in the middle, we are sort of you could say, the compliance software in between that first of all ensures that there is an agreement with the company, that there is also a contract with the landowner. So we actually have the rights. We have taken over the rights for the ecosystem services that are being extracted from that piece of land. And it means that the company can go in and then use the Acorn platform to actually view their asset. Any questions?
There's one typing in the chat, so maybe there's a question on the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see the chat?
Let me just.
Otherwise, I can read it out loud.
Yeah.
So Jens Lyn is asking, are those companies able to do that every year? So I assuming that is harvesting the CO2. credits,
Yeah,
or is it
so
only once?
yeah, so essentially, let me just give you an example of the pilot project that we are launching right now in Denmark. This is a project, forestation project that will be kicked off in spring 24, and where we one of the investors is a big retailer in Denmark called GreenMind that are selling, say, refurbished electronics. So essentially, what GreenMind has bought into is that they have bought 30% of the 35, or is it 34% of the shares in this project. So it means that the yield from this land, in terms of carbon, in terms of biodiversity, in terms of cleansing of groundwater, etc., all of those nature benefits that are being documented on the platform, they can use in their official sustainability report. So we ensure that we have the full audit trail of, first of all, when we establish the project, we essentially go out and make an agreement with the landowner. So they establish the forest from ground up. And we need to do it this way so we can actually we develop the project according to EU standards, because at the end of the day, the companies, they have to be able to extract what we call high quality carbon credits from that piece of land. And it means that we need to live up to certain criteria from the EU. And one of them is additionality. So we need to essentially help increase the carbon, the area of land, so to speak, that helps mitigate climate changes. So it has to be forest that is being created from scratch. And then the company, let's say there is an average of 15 tons of carbon per year on that share that you've bought, then you're essentially allowed to use those 15 tons as an offset in your official ESG accounting, and you can also use it to count against any kind of tax from the government. So let's assume you were actually taxed for 15 tons of carbon, but you had also on the other side invested in an Acorn share that actually gave you 15 tons of CO2 uptake. Then you could eliminate and use it as an offset instead. Then you wouldn't get this, you could say, tax on pollution from the government. So this is why we built all of the solutions on Acorn with the regulation, the EU regulation in the back of our mind. Did it answer the question?
I think I got it. And Jens is writing right now, saying thank you.
And if I can just emphasize, essentially what is important for us when we establish a project, and also the link to obviously the tagging, is that this Acorn pilot project that we're establishing here, we do with partners that are responsible for the forestation part. So we get a lot of documentation on the land or the forest that is being established. We have measurements on the quantification on the carbon uptake. We also have all of the, you could say, the core obligations towards the landowner, that they actually hand over the rights to those ecosystem services to Acorn, so we can hand them over to the company. This we have registered in public deed, so it means that there's no, you could say, there's no doubt that the rights actually first of all belong to Acorn, and then again to the company at the end. So we, all of that information, we obviously, or you could say the important part of the information, we store in the DLT in the database. And it also means that when the forest has been established this spring 24, we sort of hard close all the initial documentation on the forest land. This is how much the carbon calculations, also all of the agreements that we have with like both investors and landowners. This we sort of register on the DLT, and then all of the following years we ensure that we verify that there is still a piece of land. So that could be the partners that are actually maintaining the land, because that there are strict rules for how the land has to be maintained over a couple of years. Those partners, they simply provide documentation to us that it is still maintained as a peace forest, it's maintained in a good condition, and this provides confidence to the investors, so the companies at the end, that they can still take the yield, for instance, the biodiversity tokens, the carbon, and use it in their official ESG accounting. So it's like an end-to-end, you could say, audit trail. First of all, what is the project? And then moving forward, every year we document that this project is still, you could say, live, and all of the essential data which we perceive as sort of heartbeats, this is pushed into the DLT.
Nice
So
one
you
with
could say
the heartbeats.
Yeah, you could say one of the heartbeats could be, let's say, if GreenMind next year or the year after, they would like to spend or use some of the carbon sequestration in their official sustainability reporting, then we obviously register that now they have used it as an offset. It means that they cannot obviously sell that off. They cannot use more. So we have a full audit trail of that. This can only be used once. This is also to ensure that we live up to the regulation, the EU regulation. So we ensure that there's not multiple counting. Let's say there's more companies actually using the same carbon credits from the same piece of land more than once.
Yeah, and I dare say that is some of the advantages that we are bringing to the table with the Tagion system. So Jacob and Acorn, they're building, as mentioned earlier, they're building on a platform, Aon Connect, that is essentially a business platform. But Aon Connect is using the Tagion system for all types of assets, including the projects, the forest projects that are stored as NFTs, and also there are shares of NFTs that are stored in the system. And whenever Jacob or one of Jacob's customers are doing something on the platform, that can be a heartbeat that gets registered and so on, then in a very seamless manner, this becomes a transaction in the Tagion system, and every transaction needs to be paid with Tagion tokens. So that is how you can say, as an investor, one may benefit from the Acorn type of projects out there. And I think it's a really good example, and also one thing that is an advantage that we believe we have, or we know we have, that is that the power usage of the system, of the Tagion system, makes it ideally fitted for the type of projects that is going on with Acorn, with the Ærenskovn and all the many other projects that are coming here, because we have very, very, very low footprint when it comes to how many kilowatt hours are being used per transaction. I think we have a quote on the website on how much it is, but it's a hard thing to say. But Jacob, maybe could you comment a little bit on the outlook for the projects? I guess this is the pilot, but are there more lined up? And
yes, for sure.
How's the market reacting to it?
Yeah, I think first of all, what is essentially happening right now, and when we discuss with clients, is that they have a lot of focus right now on adopting or being ready to the regulation from the EU regarding the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD. So they need to now report on, you could say, all of their sustainability initiatives, if they have any at all. So that's the first step, that's where they spend their time right now. But then gradually they are also getting into discussions. Okay, if they figure out that they have, let's say, that every year they have 1,000 tons of carbon that are being emitted. How do they solve this? And this is where Acorn comes in handy, because they can use, you could say, Acorn also as a way to purchase offset. And so the sense right now is that we have obviously companies coming in and that are buying the product right now. But it's more, you could say, the larger companies that are aware about the legislation and that they have to act now. It's not as much the small companies. They are not acting before they have, you could say, that the issue is slapped. Yeah, exactly. It's more
Regulation.
the larger companies that are aware and have an overview of the regulation. They're also the ones that know exactly the tax on carbon, how it's going to hit them. So they look at our product in many ways, and also they could actually purchase carbon credits at a discount if they bought into a project like this. So we have a lot of projects coming in at the moment, but right now on the, let's say, for the next Q4, the focus from our perspective at Acorn Denmark is to ensure that the pilot project runs as planned. And there's a lot of details that we need to ensure, also in regards to, first of all, the EU legislation, property rights, landowner agreements, investor agreements, all of this. So we essentially start out in Q1 next year with a solid solution that we can scale quickly. And then you could say, yeah, that's essentially, that's the focus at the moment, at least. It's to ensure that the pilot project, in all details, is actually that we follow this to the doorstep, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, that's quite exciting for us, providing some of the underlying technology, of course, and it's good. It's very good for us also to have some real usage, and it's nice to
And
be
I
able
think,
to mention Jacob as a
yeah, I
customer,
think
but also referring to some of your customers in the future.
Yeah, I think if I may add, at least the
Mhm.
observation that we have from the projects right now and the clients that we speak to is that you can never over document a project like this. You can never, let's just give you an example. All of the documentation that we get from, let's say, the forestation partner, this could be the plant lists, the forestation maps, all of those documents, they need to individually sign with local bank ID, like NemID in Denmark. So we know that all of the documentation that is essentially making the shaping the NFT, it's all signed off by independent third parties. So you cannot put any documentation out there without somebody actually validating this from their end, which obviously supports the whole credibility, right?
How much of the documentation will be in the DLT? Will all of it be available for everyone to look at?
I mean, as a ground rule, we will be providing access to as much information as possible. So we have as much transparency, but obviously there are parts of, you could say, a landowner agreement that we have with a local landowner. We don't want, for a lot of reasons, to put this out publicly, what we pay them, or if there are certain details. So this we will not be providing access to, unless by request. Other than
So
that,
that's
everything is put on the
that's
table, so to speak.
yeah. Okay. So as much transparency as possible into the projects online
Exactly.
and available to
Yeah,
everyone via Tagion. Yeah.
correct.
There's a question. I think it'll be read loud in a second, but I'll take it here. It's being asked: can private persons buy into shares?
For the moment, no. It's obviously the ambition that we don't want to discriminate, essentially. So already now, our ambition is to be able to sell to any kind and any size of company. The smallest amount you can purchase right now is 1 NFT equals 1 hectare of land. We could also choose at some point to change this, so we shard it in a different way. So we make, instead of, 1 hectare is 10,000 square meters. We could also divide this by 10. So it's, you could say, more easy to digest for a retail or private person to buy into. And this might also make the asset more liquid. So this we're obviously looking into, but for the initial pilot project in Stenlille, Erenskoven, we are selling a share which equals 1 hectare of land.
Okay, that makes good
But
sense. So that will
but at
be
the
at
end,
a
obviously,
later stage.
yeah, at a later stage, we obviously have the ambition that you should be able to buy as a retail or private person, and you could even provide it as a gift or as an investment. So yeah, but that's a little bit further down the line.
And one more from the audience: is this buyable with tokens, or what is used to pay the shares that the companies are buying from you?
This is at the moment not possible. Maybe in 15 years. No, at the moment it is with simply Danish kroners.
Okay, so
Yeah.
and that's back to the whole discussion around, I guess, that what we have is there's not a huge uptake at the moment for buying digital assets from corporations, from businesses, and of course that may change. We are part of that change, and we have a platform that makes it entirely possible. So it's just a matter of time before we have told the whole world about Tagions and how smart it is, and we have maybe the currency have found some stability, and then it makes sense to use Tagions as a means of payment for shares in an Acorn project.
Yeah.
And yeah, you remember what I told earlier, that every time there's a change, so every time something buys something, even though they use fiat to pay Acorn for the shares from the buying company, even though that happens, then when the shares changes ownership, that happens on the ledger. So that happens on the Tagion system. So even though there's you can say the majority of the payment is happening in a traditional way, then every time something happens, something changes ownership, there's an update or something, you have Tagions that are being used to pay for the transactions or for the data that's being stored. So Tagions are in play whenever something happens. You can say the neat thing from a business perspective is that this has been made quite seamless, so you don't actually need to be aware that you're working with tokens in the systems behind the scenes, and neither does Jacob for the matter or Acorn. It just happens. That is you can say the abstraction that is provided by the EN Connect, the business platform you can see in the chat. Yeah. So
I think from an for the investors, I would say it's, at least from where I sit and many that I speak with in the industry, it appears that I think our solution that we're delivering now in partnership with EN Connect is probably one of the first out there where we can actually assetize a project like this with the use of a DLT. So even though you could say the scope of the MVP is not huge, it's still a huge accomplishment that we can actually bring those projects live very soon. And this is obviously also something that triggers a lot of the conversations we have with companies, because they are, okay, I would say to some extent surprised that we can very soon deliver a platform that they can actually interact with. It's not only something conceptual. So that gives us a huge advantage also in the commercial discussions.
It's from my perspective, I'm very biased. It's very cool. I think it's excellent use of this type of technology, and that's also what many projects have been trying to do, and also claiming to be doing. But yeah, of course, for us, it's really good use. One of the use cases we hope to see a lot of the detection system. But the first one for the hard, so it's really great that you have providing trust in the system, even though we are live soon, but not yet. That is very good. So yeah, we are definitely here to support you, and we hope that the business is going to drive to for a long time to come, and that you will sell many projects that will help.
I'm sure. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Yes. I think that appears to be it. Maybe our dear moderator could join us.
Yes, I'm here. Just
Yes.
gently listening. It's really wonderful to see this coming to fruition, blossoming, if you can say. And it's really been great to understand the overview. So how Tagion is connected with AirConnect and Acorn. I think it provides a great visualization of an emerging ecosystem, and hopefully paves the way also for other projects to develop and have their imagination sparked by this kind of case that we're delivering. We're actually out of time, and that's really great. Thank you guys for an amazing discussion, and Jacob, also thank you for taking the time to present Acorn.
My pleasure.
And Christian for being here to explain how it benefits Tagion and also the demand for Tagions going forward.
True.
I see there's a few people typing in the chat, so we'll just give a few moments. But otherwise, guys, as always, please feel free to continue the discussion in general. We really, especially in the run up to the launch, would love to see some more discussions, questions, whatever you feel like. We'll be hosting another town hall soon, for sure. And we have some exciting announcements coming out in the next few weeks. So please stay tuned, and thank you all so much for being here. It's amazing to see so many people here today.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And the recording will be out. Stay tuned. Yes. Thanks for being in the chat. Amazing. Super, super great. Have a good day, guys.